Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today is Monday, which means it's time for an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of weapon and accessories you'd like me to run with, and I will pick one of the top rated comments for the next episode. Today's top comment comes from Emil Herlin. He says the Swedish Army Loadout, Engineer Class AK5C with the ACOG and stubby grip, G18 with no attachments. Gadgets will be using the MK153 small and the M15 AT mine, the M67 frag grenade, and the anti-tank field upgrade. Play defensive rush. The Russians have just bombed Stockholm and are now moving in with tanks. You're one of the last anti-tank soldiers to be as effective as you can with the small and the mines. Greetings from Sweden. Now the AK5C is a great carbine. I've used it quite a lot. In fact, it's actually my most used weapon. I have 22 service stars with it, 2,215 kills. Now many of you might be thinking that's really not that many kills, and well, I like to try and spread out my kills among different weapons, so I'm always switching it up, not spending too much time with any individual weapon. Now obviously the AK5C is a Swedish weapon. DICE is located in Sweden. The AK5C is probably one of the best carbines in the game. Kind of suspicious maybe. I've also got the most kills with it, not because I think the gun itself is particularly cool, but because it's extremely effective. I can use it in just about any situation as the engineer and do really well. Now I've never personally had the opportunity to hold an AK5C, but I have had the opportunity to hold an AK5C replica, and I have to say the gun is extremely bulky. If you're used to, say, the M4 style platform or the AR-15 style platform, this thing is giant, it's bulky, it's got big handguards on it, the magazines have all this texturing on it. It basically looks like a weapon that was meant to go through a blizzard, and perhaps it was. The mags are actually designed to be pulled out with snow gloves, and the trigger guard is designed to be used with extremely thick snow gloves. So everything on the gun really looks like it was meant to be used in sort of a very rugged, unforgiving situation, which is definitely something that favors military design. I was just a bit surprised when I first handled this weapon because it's a little bit awkward, I'll be honest. Luckily, when it comes to video games, we don't have to worry about the ergonomics of weapons. It really just comes down to weapon stats, and speaking of that, we can pop up the Synthic stats here and see just why this carbine is such a beast. It's got a 0.2 pull left, 0.2 pull right, giving it an equal left and right pull, meaning you're not going to have to really compensate too much with the thumbstick or your mouse. And then we have the vertical recoil, which is 0.32 pull up with a 1.65 first shot recoil. Pretty low overall and very easy to compensate for, especially considering that it has a 700 round per minute rate of fire. Not the highest in the game, but it just makes this gun very easy to handle, very easy to get on target. Then we have that crazy 1.85 second reload, which is one of the fastest in the game, and I'll just chalk that up to the fact that these magazines have that big grippy texture on them, making it that much easier to reload the gun. Now I did actually manage to record nothing but rush games for this loadout. I couldn't actually specifically just stick to defensive games of rush. Obviously I have to play the offensive rounds as well, so I threw in both angles, both defensive and offensive. It didn't really change up the gameplay too much. One mistake I did make though, I forgot to equip mines. I didn't have too much opportunities to use them, and I think at one point I managed to get a blowtorch kill on an Amtrak, so you know, I did a little bit of work with the blowtorch even though I didn't have those mines to try and sabotage enemy tanks. Now admittedly I did have a little trouble using the ACOG at first with this carbine. It's not really a natural feeling. There's quite a bit of rifle bounce with this gun, so the ACOG isn't that ideal, especially for those longer range targets. But as I got used to it, you know, I was kind of tap firing a little bit more, doing short round bursts, and I was able to make it somewhat effective. Also, the gun can be hip fired perfectly effectively in close quarters. I've also got that G18, so if I ran into any close quarter threats, the primary sidearm combo was more than enough to deal with those targets. And the G18 is an absolute beast. It's just a great sidearm to have. It's always effective at taking out one target in close quarters. It's got an incredibly fast reload, so if there's a follow-up target behind that, you can re-engage with the G18 and not feel like you're at too much of a damage disadvantage even when you're going up against players with assault rifles. Now we're defending on Operation Mortar, and this is probably one of the least ideal situations to actually have the AK5C. It's a decent carbine, but at extreme ranges it's probably not the best weapon to have out there. And on top of that, I didn't really have too many situations to take advantage of my rocket. There were a few vehicles here and there, but mostly it was infantry storming the beaches and trying to get to the locations. Now obviously that is the one disadvantage of Loadout. I can't adapt my loadout to different situations. I'm kind of stuck with it. So playing defensively on rush, generally speaking, is good, but on this map in particular, as you can see right here, I am very limited on cover. I'm getting hailed with mortar shots, and I just don't have a lot of options in this situation other than to try and hide and wait till targets get close enough to me so that I can kill them. And it worked okay, but ultimately we didn't have a successful defensive round. Now when we switched to a map where I had a roof over my head, protection from those mortars and UCAVs, was able to take advantage of medium range and close quarter combat, the AK5C started to shine, and we were able to do a much better job defensively. And you're going to see that here as we switch over to Flood Zone. Now there's a few different ways to run the AK5C. Obviously this is not my ideal way. The ACOG just isn't my bread and butter with this gun. You can use any sort of red dot sight, it'll be a little bit better. But as far as the stubby grip goes, that is certainly a decent way to run it. I was talking to Jack Frags recently. He likes to run this gun with the angled foregrip and heavy barrel and kind of tap fire it a bit better. Says it's incredibly accurate. I was trying it out. It certainly is a good way to run that gun. So there's definitely several ways to run this weapon. I think regardless of what attachments you put on it aside from scope, it's still going to be pretty darn effective overall. Now fighting on Flood Zone in Rush gets crazy real fast. Things get funneled into close quarter combat. You also can shoot out of windows for some good medium range combat. And right now I am holding off like pretty much an entire squad assault by myself. I'm not sure where the team is, but I'm just taking down one guy after the other in this narrow choke point. Ultimately though, I got a little bit greedy with that G18, peaked out with 29 health, got taken out, but I do take one of them with me. Now I spawn back in, make it up to the same location, and I start taking out players from the windows, and I keep taking out more guys in that stairwell. It is just such a hard stairwell for the enemy team to push up. There's so many easy ways to kill them, by throwing C4 down there, throwing grenades down there, or just waiting for them to make it up the stairs and mowing them down with your primary. On top of that, you have several windows to peek out of and get some good medium range kills. If somebody spotted you in one of the windows, move on to another window. Even if somebody hasn't spotted you or you don't think they have, move to a different window anyway. If you have the opportunity to change up your firing location, then do it. It'll basically keep the enemy guessing, and it'll make it harder for them to zero in on your position. Oftentimes our RPG is already flying towards the position that you're hiding in, and it's good just to move it up just in case. Now I do love getting splash damage kills with the RPG, and you'll see here this guy manages to run around the corner, and I figure he didn't move far. He's just waiting at that corner, so I'm going to put an RPG on the ground right where I think he might be. Now there is something particularly satisfying about getting those indirect explosive kills. Now we managed to just burn through their tickets pretty fast here, hold them off in this game of Rush, and I gotta say Flood Zone on Rush is pretty crazy, but it's also a lot of fun. And despite the ACOG not being my ideal setup, I was able to use it just fine because the AK5C is such a beast of a carbine. Don't forget to tell me in the comments which loadout you would like me to use for next week's episode. And as always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.